sort of we as a species, I guess, disagree effectively. And yeah, so that's the
Or
sort of
disagree ineffectively, right? Because there are many times we disagree ineffectively.
yeah. I've already got the disagreeing ineffectively. I've got that nailed. What I want to work on is like, how can you disagree effectively in a sense of that you might. I mean, the chance that two people end up agreeing after a disagreement, I think we'd all accept, is relatively low. It's just about what might increase the probability that it goes a better direction, you know? Theist experience, isn't it? There we go.
Yeah, I agree. I think, especially if you like have like a hardened atheist speaking to a devout Muslim, it's like chances of them agreeing on anything larger than pretty trivial things are pretty minimal. Chances of me agreeing with anything that Face of Yar says is pretty minimal as well. Love you,
Shots
Face of Yar,
fired.
though. I love Face of Yar. He's like one of my first friends on Discord, so
Okay.
yeah, love him.
So yeah, so can you go back to because it sounded like what you were starting with was the how can a sort of question of how can you know anything, and then how can you know that you know that, I think was the gist.
Yeah, in a non-Christian worldview, or can you think of any non-Christian worldview, that in which you would actually be able to, have the truth and know that you have the truth and know that you know that, and how,
I might slightly change the question so I can answer it more effectively because, I was in here the other day and Not a Fox assures me I'm a solipsist. I'm not sure that we can know anything. The reason I don't think I'm a solipsist is because solipsists seem to leave a special place that they know that they exist, and I'm not sure I could the idea for me is if there are some things I think could be the case, to the point that I say I know them and I could be wrong, and I don't have a good method for determining which one from the other, then I should hold all things with doubt. I don't understand why I'd hold myself in any different position to that, because obviously I think there's a high degree of probability that I exist, but I don't think
that's still a solipsist.
Oh, okay. So maybe it is. Maybe I don't fully understand solipsism. A lot of this political debate stuff is new to me.
I mean, I suppose that the type of solipsism that we're normally talking about is that, if you don't know you're not the only mind, you'd be a solipsist. And what you're saying is that, you're basically saying, what you're saying. You're saying you could be, but you don't believe you are,
no,
I guess, right?
I think the probability that I'm the only mind is incredibly low. I think that's very unlikely.
Well, no, how do you get away from the 50-50 mark? Like, so it could be the case, it could not be the case. So we're in the middle. We're going to be unbiased. How do we get off of the middle line?
Good question. I like that question. I get off the middle line by just sort of going, is that the gist I go for? Also, I mean, there would be simple measures like there are people I meet who say that something happened with a different person present, and then that other person confirms that things happened. Or we can read books about mariners navigating by the stars, and sure, all of the books could be a figment of my imagination. I could be a brain in a bucket, but we can sort of, it's just a lot of my worldview comes from efficacy. What's a functional way to look at the world? And I think it's functional and useful to assume that other people do exist.
Yeah, sure, but we're not really talking about, I mean, I wasn't really trying to get into what's functional or what's pragmatic, just about what's true. Like, in reality, you believe that you could have created all things and that you could sustain all life through your very being. That's your worldview.
I think that's incredibly improbable, but sure, possible.
Well, how do you get away from the 50-50 mark? You can't just appeal to pragmatism, because that doesn't necessarily get you off of the inactuality off of the 50-50 mark.
Okay, I see. So I don't go for it, Beanie, if you'd like to.
Oh God.
Oh God.
No, it's just. Oh, it's Beanie. Okay. It's because it was yesterday. But yeah, I don't know. Try not to interrupt and stuff. But go on, Beanie.
Well, I mean, I did mute myself afterwards because if Eggshells wanted to continue, then good. But if not, I can try because I've been down this road before and I know where it leads, right? So if you wanted to say that you are the only mind and you create the world, then it would make sense, right? That you thinking about something you really want can happen, right? So if I thought about me wanting to have a cake, if I am the only mind, I'm creating all of the world, then it could be the case that I could just create a cake for me to eat, right? That's not the case.
No,
Therefore, I'm probably not the only
no,
mind.
I'm not sure
no,
that
that's not.
follows. I'm not sure that
Because
follows
you've had,
that implies the
I
creation
mean,
process is just thinking of something, which
Yeah,
it
yeah,
might
yeah.
not be.
It's only by implication. I'm not making a deductive argument. I'm making an inductive argument.
Right. I
it's
see.
not even inductive because you could be dreaming, and just because you're dreaming doesn't mean that you can have whatever you want. You don't have, beautiful
No.
women following you around every day in your dreams, do you?
No, that's not quite what I'm saying, right? I could make another one as to why I'm not dreaming, right? Because in dreams, weird shit happens, and in real life, weird shit doesn't happen. Conclusion, I'm probably not dreaming.
That assumes that you've ever been awake.
But
So I feel like I can probably accelerate the conversation by assuming face that you're going to say how in guesswork, but if we chase it all the way down to, well, where does that come from, and where does that come from, and where does that come from, we'll get to that sort of infinite regress of going, well, you've got no basis for that, to which I would happily agree. Great, I've got no basis for that. Yeah, I think it's improbable.
I'm saying you cannot get. I'm saying you can't get off the 50-50 base. I mean, if you had a way, you would, right? When you said with reason, you said like guessing and reasoning. Guessing is not going to do it. That's not going to actually get you off the 50-50.
Well, why? So that presumes that 50-50 is the natural state of things. I don't think 50-50 is the natural state of probabilities.
Because if we're unbiased and we're dealing with like you're a solipsist, you're not a solipsist. If we're going to be unbiased and not go in with a preconceived answer already in mind,
sure.
We could just say maybe you are the creator and sustainer of all, maybe you're not.
Isn't that the golden? And then the golden mean fallacy, where if I think that two things are possible, they are equally probable? That's which is not what I'm saying.
I'm saying, well, this one, all the evidence would be the same either way. So whether you created and sustained all things as it is now, everything would be as it is now. And if you didn't, and something else did, then it would be the same. So no evidence could ever kind of get you off the 50-50 mark, I don't think.
No. Can I point it in somewhere?
Go,
just really quickly. So, if I had a chair that was created in China and a chair that was created in the USA, right? The chair would look the same, right? If it's the same company producing it, the chair would look exactly the same. However, if the evidence was it had a label saying made from China, the store where I bought it from, the person said, oh yeah, this came shipped in from China, right? So I have all the evidence that suggests it's from China, but it looks exactly the same as a chair that looks as if it's from the US. So it looks exactly the same, except the evidence points that it's made in China.
All I'm basically saying is that solipsism, the evidence is going to be consistent either way. So you're going to have no evidence that would indicate either or. You're not going to be able to get off of that non-biased starting place.
Well, I mean, I can say everything that exists is, generally speaking, larger, more complex than anything I've ever been able to create. I don't think I've ever really been able to create anything short of changing things from their current state into a different state, typically by breaking them. But occasionally, I guess, maybe I build or fix things. So it assumes that... Yeah, go on.
Does that assume that you didn't create? Does that assume that you didn't create and sustain all things?
Oh, it doesn't seem probable to me. I mean, all I'm going what it seems to me.
Listen, it's a true dichotomy. Either it assumes that you didn't create and sustain all things, or it does not assume that you didn't create and sustain all things.
I assume I didn't create and sustain all things.
Right, which is just an assumption. And that assumption, you're begging the question, because that's the thing that we're asking. We're trying to find out if you did. So you're basically saying, well, because I assume I didn't, therefore I didn't. That's no argument at all.
think I'm not following you.
You're assuming you didn't create and sustain all things as evidence to get you off of the 50-50 mark.
I'm finding it improbable because I haven't done other things that are similar to that.
But that assumes that you haven't done all things.
Yes, I'm going to reason that it is probable that my memory is effective, and while I have done some pretty cool things in my life, I don't recall readily any time I've done anything quite as amazing as create all things. So I'm going to reason probably that if I have no memory of it, it's unlikely that I did and forgot about it, and I've not been able to manage to do similar things to that, so I find it improbable. To say that as you know, can you tell me how you get to 50-50 from, I'm going to put it at sort of 0.01% and lower.
Why would you
number. Why would it be 50-50? You're picking an arbitrary number too. Why 50-50?
No, because there's two sides to the proposition, and we want to be unbiased. We don't want to go in with a preconceived absolute answer before we've even asked the question.
Why are there two sides to it? Who established these two sides?
Because any proposition can be affirmed or denied. So, you're basically saying that, you believe you didn't create and sustain all things, and that's the evidence that you didn't, because you believe you didn't, because you think your memories indicate that you didn't.
I don't mean to... Sorry, I'm speaking over you. I'm being rude. Go ahead.
No, go on. Go ahead.
I don't quite understand the 50-50 proposition, because if it's me who could have done it, and I think that it is probable that you exist, then it is possible that you created it. So it's possible that somebody else. It's possible that the Christian God created it. It's possible that Vishnu created it. It's possible that who was the Greek god that was meant to have created all things? It's possible that all of those different things happen. I put them all to an equally low, roughly equally low probability. Admittedly, the way I'm told the story of the Christian God, I might put that a couple of notches above me in terms of probability. But if I weigh all of these possibles, I go all of them are quite low. And but they still don't all stack up to 100%. What stacks up to the vast amount of it is I probably don't know at all anything about what started all of creation.
Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go on if you want to.
Let me just line this up again, right? Just quickly. So there's a dichotomy, right? There's either this is the case or it's not the case, right? That's the dichotomy. It's a true dichotomy, right? Now,
is it?
Yeah.
Could I have created? Could I have created?
If you're starting off from on any dichotomy like this, if you're starting off from a non-biased perspective, then you're not going to be picking either side automatically or erring on one side without evidence that supports that. Okay.
Sure.
So you need good reasons to. So if you're unbiased, you're going to start in a neutral perspective. And that's what faces.
Yeah, sure. I wouldn't deny that I have bias. Absolutely. I think that's part of the whole reason I try to doubt all of my ideas on things, because I've got to recognize that I'm going to be biased. I'm going to lean one way or another. I think most of those biases, most of the time, are useful to me.
As long as that bias doesn't become then the evidence that you're right. You know what I mean? You can't just say, well, my bias says that I, didn't create and sustain all things, therefore I didn't, Right,
but I don't think that's an accurate characterization of what I said. I think I provided things I think that reason relatively simply to that conclusion, that there could be many other things. I also don't think I quite accept that this is a X or not X proposition, because did I create all things depends what you define as things and depends what you define as create. Did I spring them from nothing? I think incredibly low. Could a team of people have done it? So I sprang from nothing most of the things, but somebody else joined in, or I sprang from nothing a tiny amount of the things and a team or an individual on the other side sprung up other things.
All of that. We could go to true dichotomies with any of the particulars, but this dichotomy is just going to be that simple, that it's either the case that you are the creator and sustainer of all, or you're not.
I'm saying it's
and if you
very unlikely that it's the case.
No, that's a bias, because we haven't even asked the question yet. You're already starting off. No, but you're indicating, but it would, if you were going to be reasonable, you would reason this through, and you have no way to get off of that neutral position. You'd have no way logically. You have no defeater or to the neutrality. You cannot even conquer neutrality, let alone get it to where you actually are a contingent being.
And so you would say that neutrality is important. Tell me a bit about the importance of neutrality.
What I'm saying is, like, normally people would have an affirmative and a denial, and they would clash. I'm saying look, let's just place things in the middle, so we're not going to be biased. I'm saying you're not even going to be able to conquer that neutral position.
Explain to me why me as a human being creating all things, the unbiased position is that there is a 50% chance that is the case. I don't follow that reason.
Because it's a true dichotomy. There's only two choices, and we're going in unbiased rather than just going in with a preconceived answer. Then it would just be it would be indecisive. It would be indeterminate until we have evidence.
Is this the case?
But that doesn't mean it's a 50-50
split. Is that true of all true dichotomies? Guilty or innocent is a true dichotomy, wouldn't it be?
Well, if you're going in unbiased, you're not going in with 99% sure that the guy is a murderer, surely. I mean, there's no point having a trial. Really.
I'm not sure I understand your term about bias. Go ahead, Benny.
So I asked this question to another person and they didn't answer. But let's say you have a jar of marbles, right? And there are 100 marbles in this jar. No, let's make it 10, right? There are 10 marbles in the jar. Now, 9 of them are blue and 1 of them is red. I have a blindfold. So you have a blindfold on. You pick out a marble at random. So this is a true dichotomy, right? You either have a blue marble or you have a red, right? You say, okay, look, well, there are 9 blue marbles and only 1 red marble. Therefore, I'm going to say that I probably have a
distinction. In the one that I gave was a 50-50. There's only 2 possibilities.
That's exactly what he's questioning.
But that was your claim, right? That's your claim that it's 50-50. I don't agree with that.
Well, what's the symmetry breaker? How would we so any evidence for not solipsism is going to equally be identical for solipsism. So we're going to have there's no symmetry breaker between the two.
No, but like I said before, right? With a chair from the 2 different countries, the chairs can look identical, and it might even have a tag which says made from China. It might actually be made in the USA, and they're just pulling one over your eyes, right? They're trying to troll you by saying made from China, right? So all the evidence would look exactly the same, right? We've got no reason to believe that it's made in the USA, and we've got every reason to believe that it's made in China. So even though it's possible that the chair could be made in the US, we're just going to say that it's made in China, right? If the guy says, yep, I got it from China, the tag says, yep, made in China, okay, that's good enough for me. I'll say it's made in China, right? That's it. It's done. Could it be made in the US? Yeah, sure. But there's no evidence to suggest it.
Look, we have these 2 propositions, right? And it's 100% possible. Listen, it's 100% possible that he's the only mind, or it's 100% possible that he's not the only mind. And there's going to be no symmetry breaker to be able to get away from this, true, unbiased 50-50 dichotomy.
What? The terminology is very weird. It's 100% possible. Like if it's
possible, it's
like,
possible. I don't get how you could have a percent of possible.
Yeah, wouldn't you just say it's possible that he's the only mind and it's possible that he's not the only mind?
Well, actually, if it's 100%, what is 45% of possible?
The possibility is equal either side. The point I'm trying to make is that the possibility is going to be equal. There's going to be no symmetry breaker between the 2. It's not like where you guys are trying to sway it is 99.9 on one side.
I've just given you a symmetry breaker. I just gave you an argument.
You gave we're dealing with this topic. We're not talking about, what was that topic you brought up? It was a complete, we're dealing with this topic. And plus I'm having a conversation with someone else as well. So we could talk to you at the end and we could deal with the topic at hand. Do you guys have a defeat for solipsism?
Well, I just gave you an inductive argument, right? That if you were the only mind, weird shit would happen. It would break the laws of logic and the laws of nature. Weird shit doesn't happen that breaks the laws of nature and the laws of logic. Therefore, I'm not the only mind. It's an inductive argument.
You don't know any of those. You don't know any of those premises to be correct. In fact, a lot of them sound very, very dodgy.
Yeah, that's fine, but it's not a deductive argument. I'm not trying to make it one, because I freely grant, like eggshells as well. I freely grant that I could be the only mind. So I'm not trying to present a deductive argument. It's an inductive one.
I'm saying, look, you could be the only mind and you could not be the only mind, and you have no way to know either way, because all the evidence would be the same either way. That's a fact. And you guys have not challenged that. You just keep on talking about, remotely related stuff. You haven't dealt with it.
I guess I'm struggling to tell the kind of the point of it, so to speak, which is this for me explaining it to you or for how I conceive of it myself? Because my main interest is in being functional and sort of, which is where I want to get next, which is the sort of so what does this change about the way I live my life? In what way is any of this relevant, basically? So are you asking this in terms of my perception of what I think is the case, or how I can convince you that this is a rational way to be?
Well, I don't think anyone believes it's rational to think that they could have created and sustained all people, unless it's the fact that you are the creator and sustainer of all. And as a non-Christian, you probably don't even believe in that, right?
Yeah, I don't think that Just So story has any more merit than any other Just So story I've come across. So, yeah.
Well, what if one Just So story just happens to ground all things, and all of the other Just So stories ground nothing? Wouldn't that be a symmetry breaker?
Okay, one Just So story. Sorry, you wouldn't call it a Just So story. Would you like to say how you would describe your position or whatever in your belief, how you would describe what you think to be the case?
Yeah, it's going to be like a biblical kind of worldview where like the creator and sustainer of all creates and sustains all, and it's not you. You're not. That's you're not the creator and sustainer of all life, even though in your solipsism you would probably assert that you could be. But it's just not the case that you could be.
Okay, so you say what you think that is the case, or believe? Would you use the word believe to be the case?
I would say I know it to be the case.
You know it to be the case. I know knows that there is a creator and sustainer of all, and it is the Christian God. Is that how you might put it?
Yeah, I mean, I might put it that way if you ask specifically.
Well, I'd prefer to take it in your terms, because I really don't want to sort of miscategorize.
It just depends.
Misclassify.
It just depends what conversation we're having. Sometimes people just want to talk about generic theism.
Sure.
Other people want to go deep into other stuff.
So, yeah. So I'd like to understand what you think. Sort of, so I've got so we can have this comparison, because I think I agree with some of it. I'm not sure that I get to the same when we're talking about my worldview. I hold all things to be possible, but like I've been saying, I think some of them I just use my reasoning and best guesses and look for bits of evidence while recognizing myself to be deeply limited in that regard. And I go, it's extraordinarily unlikely that I'm the creator of all things, and that's. I'm not sure we get to the 50-50, but I take your point that what you're saying is, in some ways, my worldview is that I could be the creator of all things. And if I don't have an infinite ability to regress down to know something for sure, then I'm going to mistrust or have no real rational reasoning for any of them. So it should be 50-50. I don't think we agree there, but I think I get.
I didn't give that argument. No,
okay.
That wasn't the argument.
Okay.
No, you don't have a symmetry. There's no. I mean, yeah, you're right that there's going to be no ultimate frame of reference, but that doesn't link to this 50-50ness. So that's separate. There's the 50-50 is that it's affirmed or denied, like this proposition, and you have no symmetry breaker whatsoever. There is no evidence that could indicate either or, technically.
Okay, so let me give you the evidence for either or. It's all gonna be inductive, I think, which is I don't see any examples around me of things being created from nothing. I don't see any examples of me creating everything, slowly changing, sometimes of its own accord, in the case of life. Sometimes inanimate things don't so much, or get changed by other things. So I don't think that there is any requirement for there to be a creator of all things. So I put that there is a creator at a low probability. And then when I look for who that creator might be, I put myself also an incredibly small probability because of the aforementioned things. I haven't created things that are large and complex. I am complex but limited in my complexity, and I think that anything that created something from nothing is to me, I imagine, very, very, very complex. And I think that would be most of my reasons for thinking I'm not the creator of all things, that I have good reason to believe that things preceded my existence. So there were things before I was here. When I think that causality is probably the case, that something could precede its cause is, to me, unlikely. All of those things.
Yeah, sure. But the thing is, everything you just said is consistent with solipsism. You could just be the only thing that exists, and you could believe that you're not.
Sure.
So you have no symmetry breaker. You have no symmetry breaker.
What is a symmetry breaker then? A breaker would be.
It's just basically that, a symmetry breaker would tip the scale, but everything you said is consistent with solipsism, therefore it doesn't tip the scale. It's like you start and you see it rock a little bit, and then we go, oh, no, wait, solipsism also predicts that. And we're back to square one,
So you're saying solipsism, I'd prefer if you sort of described things I've said with my worldview rather than just going solipsism. And if you could give me an example of what might adequately to you be a symmetry breaker, that will give me a better understanding of it. Because what I'm only sort of roughly assuming what I think you mean by symmetry breaker, and that is I'm going to naturally put things, if they're an A or B proposition, as 50-50 and then see which way it tips based on evidence. But I feel like I did present that and you said that's not a symmetry breaker, so I need to know what is.
Yeah, the reason why that's not a symmetry breaker is because all of that, imagine we had two theories. Imagine it was Newtonian physics and Einsteinian physics. And all of the predictions and experiments wouldn't indicate which one was the one. It would just be, we'd get a green tick through all of the tests on both sides. So we wouldn't know which is the case. We wouldn't have a symmetry breaker. And that's what the position you're in. It's like no matter what you say.
That's a description of what isn't a symmetry breaker. I'm asking you for a description of what is.
So
a car is not a symmetry breaker.
Symmetry breaker would just be the opposite of that. It would just be something that raises the probability of X. That is not, do you see what I'm saying? The thing you gave is consistent with solipsism. So it just raises the probability both sides equally. So it doesn't raise them.
No, not with you at all, because I still haven't heard a description of what a symmetry breaker would be in this case. Could you
It's
describe
something that would raise... No, in this case, you're not going to be able to get one. That's maybe? The thing. You can't have one.
Right. Okay. So when I keep presenting these reasoned inductive arguments, you can go, that doesn't count because solipsism, therefore give me a symmetry breaker, when in fact what you're saying is there is no symmetry breaker according to what I think your worldview dictates. So it seems like a kind of a pointless discussion to continue at that stage. So I'm curious to hear about your worldview.
Contingent, and the Most High is the Most High, and we kind of come to the throne, and we're like, I didn't create all things.
So what is your probability that the Creator is the Most High and did create all?
100%. It's just necessarily necessary. Couldn't be otherwise. It's the impossibility of the contrary.
Sure. So it's 100%. And what gets you to that 100%?
Well, just that the Most High basically reveals who he is. He just makes himself known through all means, various means, all means, whatever anything he has to do, he'll do to make himself known.
So the Most High makes himself known. Sorry, I missed a bit. I'm also write these down so I don't misrepresent what you're saying.
Yeah, like say through any and all means.
Okay, so the Most High makes himself known through any and all means. I guess that's going to be a tough one, but I'd love an example if you've got one of an example of you recognizing that the Most High has made themselves known through a means, through a particular or specific.
Well, let's
means.
say so all contingent states of affairs stand in causal relations to him. Basically, would be one.
Sounds like asserting the same thing.
I mean, that one's a decent one, I think. That which is that it's unconditionally non-dependent. All things, would be dependent upon that thing,
Which is unconditionally non-dependent, do you say?
Yeah, will basically just be that sustains all contingent states of affairs,
That which sustains, that which sustains all
contingent states of affairs.
Yeah. Wow, I've got so many of these words to lose. So let me try to understand what these are. Of affairs. I'm very new to this whole presup thing, so it's interesting to learn it. And thank you for taking the time with me as well. So when I said, can you give me an example? let's pick one of these. So that which is unconditionally non-dependent, that which sustains all contingent states of affair, all contingent states of affair come through him. Any one of these you'd like to explore or discuss in particular? They all sound like they're saying, to me at least, a similar thing. So
yeah,
contingent
so when you do,
means that one thing requires the existence of another in order for it to exist. So a baby is contingent on a mother. Is that the kind of? It's a question. I don't quite understand this contingency thing.
Yeah, it has two meanings. Yeah, one is not necessary. In other words, a non-necessity, and the other one is like it's in causal relations to. Okay. And I think both of this fits both. Okay. Like the things that exist are not necessary, and they're causally related to that which is absolute and unconditional.
Okay, absolute and unconditional, right? So this sounds like it is the case because I said it's the case because I defined it that way.
No, this is just what these words mean. So these are words that exist in the English language. I didn't invent them. Things like ultimate, unconditionally non-dependent being. These are all just standard terms for concepts that already exist. And if something is necessary, then it must be the case. It cannot fail to be the case.
Okay, so maybe you could explain why this creator and sustainer of all is necessary.
Well, it's just what we mean by necessary is that which cannot fail to exist. It's just going to be that.
How do we reason that it is necessary? How do we get there?
This is literally. It's like saying how do we reason that A equals A? That's what it means.
That's exactly what I mean. Like, it sounds like you're saying they are the creator and sustainer of all life. How do you get there? Well, because there is life, and that life necessarily dictates that there was a singular creator and sustainer of all life, because that's what the creator and sustainer of all life is defined as. And it sounds to me like you're saying God exists because I said God exists.
Well, I'm not. That's obviously not my position. That would make me some kind of creator or solipsistic creator or something.
Yeah, sorry, I don't mean to suggest that is your view. I'm just saying that's how it's sounding to me, so I feel like I'm missing a part of it.
I'm saying everything exists because he said such.
Right.
He made it so. He created and sustains it. And he declares it.
Okay. How do we know that is the case?
Because he literally done that. He literally made it known. He literally created the world. You exist. You stand in causal relations to him. All facts stand in causal relations to him. You're created in his image, and he literally came, died on a cross, raised from the dead, and he calls you back to him.
Sure. So, it still sounds like I'm trying to think of how else I might say this. Like, it sounds to me like the good guy defense, I guess, which is like, did this person commit this crime? Nah. How do you know that? Because he's a good guy. How do you know that? Because he's a great guy. In what way is he a great guy? He's a great guy. I feel like it's an argument that is not so few, is that it's not just one point. It's not just one point. God exists, therefore God exists.
I mean, remember, this criticism that you're making of my worldview is standing on basically a worldview where you don't know anything to any degree. You don't know you exist. You don't know the universe exists. You don't know that causal relations exist. You don't know information exists. You don't know anything. These are all things you borrow from the Christian worldview, which is ridiculous.
From the Christian worldview.
Yeah.
Okay, that's something I want to talk about next. It's because it's entirely possible. I was certainly born up in a sort of Anglo, at least culturally Christian place. So that would be an interesting place to go next. I'm just trying to understand this. Let's go back to that 50-50 thing. Let's say a 50-50 proposition is that this particular God did create and sustain all things, and this God didn't create and sustain all things. And that other 50% is that they occurred through natural processes, or a different creator created all things, or a different existing God or deity that created it and disappeared. And how do you get off the 50-50 to get to 100% certainty that it was this one?
Because this is the one that. Well, it's all things are evidence of him, obviously by definition. But he basically reveals himself. He has a mind. He's personal, and he basically reveals some things about himself.
He reveals some things about himself. Okay. Would you say that some people in other places in the world might feel that they have had a God reveal themselves to them, and it be a different God, that they psychosis, and it was in fact a sort of nothing was revealing itself to them, but all three, you, the Hindu, and the person suffering from a psychotic break, all had a sort of genuine experience. That would you be able to pick them apart? And what if so, what method would you use?
Well, I mean, I would have to be there to know. I don't really have a script or anything. But just maybe these people, maybe they do somewhat intuit a necessary being. Maybe they just, their cultures influence the way they draw and write these things down. But maybe they're just all talking about a similar thing. Or maybe it's the case that these are demonic spirits posing as gods or something. Who knows? But all I can do is tell you what I know. And it's just that Christ is king.
So it seems you accept that a demonic spirit could reveal themselves to somebody and in some way deceive them into believing that what they were was God, and this was a godly revelation, but it was a demonic one. And what probability would you place it at that might happen to any given individual around the world?
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to quantify that really. I don't know.
Like, I guess, so maybe a percentage, that was a bit too specific. Like, do you think that happens virtually never, never at all, sometimes, or like it might happen to any given individual once or twice in a lifetime?
I really don't know. I have no idea.
Okay.
I just only know my own experience.
Sure. Would a person having that experience be able to tell in some way that it wasn't that, or would a demonic possession, would that demon be sort of persuasive or compelling enough that it would be impossible for somebody suffering such a delusion to recognize that it was a delusion?
I mean, some of these questions are a little bit loaded, but I mean, it seems, if we go by scripture, it basically teaches that non-Christians can, be deceived by, spirits and things like that. So, yeah, depending on who these people are, they potentially, they could be deceived,
So there is a potential that somebody could believe that they had experienced revelation and that they were deceived about that, and they wouldn't be able to well, sorry, you didn't say the last part. Is there a method that one could use to determine one from the other?
Well, you would have to have an absolutely true revelation from. There's only what we're saying. There's only one Most High. Okay, there's only one true, omnipresent, all powerful, being. There are other spirits out there. How would I put this? Just the thing with Christ is like that. He makes himself known in a very particular way. It's not going to be anything like there's no way to confuse love with hate is really what we're saying. Christ is not going to be something you would confuse with some demonic spirit. Put it that way.
So people couldn't be deceived?
No, people can be deceived, but we're talking about if you want to come to the King, then you're not going to be deceived, if you accept Christ.
I'm confused because I would agree. I would say, yeah, absolutely. I can tell love from hate. I can tell those moments because they're very different experiences to me. The reason I'm confused is if it was that simple to tell the difference between demonic possession and actual revelation, that seems to me like that would be fairly easy. I would go, is this thing filling my heart with hate or not? So therefore, I would say it would be very hard, nigh on impossible, to deceive someone. I don't understand how the two would be. Yeah.
Sure. Maybe we should, could I ask you some questions?
Yeah,
maybe
please,
now?
sure.
You think? Okay, so
start a new slide. Oh, by the way, I'm writing these on a thing. I guess I can just share the Jamboard so people can look at what I'm typing when I'm typing it. Go ahead. Sorry, you wanted to ask some questions.
Right. Yeah. So, can you have intelligibility in a non-Christian worldview?
Can I have intelligibility in a non-Christian worldview? You're going to have to help me with understanding that one. Where should I put it? Voice text?
So, or can you give an account of how intelligibility is going to be real if it's not like sort of instituted and instantiated and secured from a top-down model in a all-pervasive and absolute way that's invariant?
You're gonna have to slow right down, face. I've heard all of these words, and I feel like I understand a lot of them. But yeah, like I said, I'm really new to this presuppositionalist approach, so I think I need to start at the very basic, like what is intelligibility? What does one mean by that?
Right. Yeah. Just that things can be made sense of. There's information and propositional content in the world and the things, the particulars, and that human being can extract that information and make sense of it and have understanding and basically build epistemologies and all these different things.
Sure. Yeah.
From those things.
Yeah, I think that's probably the case. Yeah, I think it's probable that world is intelligible. There are things I look around at me and I go, yeah, space flight. My motorbike, it seems like people are making sense of physics and metallurgy to make it work. Yeah.
But what secures that? What gives that invariance through time?
I guess I'm not sure it is invariant through time. I guess what you're saying is like if 1 + 1 is 2 today, how do we know that it's always been 2 and always will be 2? Is that what you mean by invariance?
I mean, that's one way of looking at it. There's more to it than that. But in other words, the problem of induction, how do you solve that? Would be another one. Like that's like what you're talking about.
I'm not. I guess
the problem of induction is just basically it's like the white swan fallacy, where it's just like saying, the past was like the past in the past, so the future will probably be like the past, which doesn't follow.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure things would always. I mean, I think they are. It seems more probable not than. Sorry, what did you say? Not impermanence. What was the word you used?
No. Yeah, like so. What secures the continuity, of the reality or actuality of the intelligibility of all things.
What secures the continuity of the intelligibility of things throughout time? Did you say? Yeah,
throughout all space and time. Yeah. Basically, yeah.
All these words in these order make sense to you, huh? Like, I feel like this is when I talk to people about my mum about computer stuff, and she's like, "Whoa, slow down, egghead." She doesn't say it like she's in The Simpsons, but yeah. What secures the continuity of the intelligibility of things throughout time? So, I'm so confused by all of these words. Secures it. Secures it in what way?
So secures, what instantiates, upholds, and I suppose guards its actuality through time.
I guess my answer to that would be I don't know.
You don't know. Okay, then then that the words you're saying now, for all you know, have a different meaning than they did 10 seconds ago. There's nothing necessarily securing it that we know of.
Sure, yeah, I guess that's possible. I hold it to be quite improbable, but I mean, 10 seconds ago, certainly I know that words change over time, so yeah, possible that they've changed.
I mean, it's possible that it's possible that all information has changed. You'd be begging the question to say that it has not.
Sure, okay, I'll accept that to see where it goes.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible that the entire past has just been deleted and a new past was installed on your memory where all your memories are false.
Men in Black style. Yeah, I like it.
Sure. Obviously, in a Christian worldview, we would say this is impossible, because there's certain promises that are made. It's, the Christian worldview is not compatible with Men in Black and stuff. Yeah.
Right.
You have to put that down.
How would you, okay, so improbable. So, and that is incompatible with the Christian worldview.
Yeah, I mean, you're not a brain in a vat. You're not a dinosaur in a bed with a tinfoil hat. You didn't create and sustain all things. Just pretty normal stuff that a 5-year-old would affirm. Is basically all true. They're correct.
Right. So it's possible that the world has been, memory has been deleted. Sure, that's possible, though improbable. And you're saying that is incompatible with a Christian worldview. Okay.
When you say it's improbable, there's going to be no symmetry breaker again. That position, but there's no kind of justification. That's what I mean. You have no epistemic symmetry breaker.
Yeah, possibly. According to your view on it, for me, functionally, I find that they are fairly easy to split apart from 50-50. But I'm happy to take your view is that I can't.
There's no inference rules you can give me to get you off of any kind of 50-50 mark. There's no. It's all going to be compatible.
If I said, I've got this book, and I wasn't yet willing to reveal what book that was, and I said, but I've got this book that absolutely asserts that that is not the case, what would you then do to challenge or question that?
Well, I suppose I would have to look at the book, but
yeah,
really
I'm saying to you, I'm not willing to put this book in front of the webcam. I'm not willing to tell you what that book is. What I'm going to do is assert to you that this book conclusively proves to me that is not the case.
I suppose I would just sort of say thank you for your time, or I don't know.
So would you be able to intelligibly tell whether I was right or wrong until I revealed that book to you? Because it seems like I think you know where this is going, right? It seems like I could hold that book up, and if I said this book's the Bhagavad Gita, you would go, well, that's wrong. But if I held it up and it was the Bible, you'd go, well done, you've achieved the right result. But it doesn't seem like you're able to immediately provide to me how you would pick that until you knew which book it was. Because that's what you said, I would need to know what book it was. So does that seem to you like a rational way to decide what is the case? And that is sort of finding out what is the case and then reasoning backwards from there?
I'm saying that the Most High would have to reveal himself to you. And then you would be more inclined to read that book,
Right. Does it... Because if I held up that book and read out sort of something from it and said, this is the Most High revealing themselves to me, or I didn't read it to you, I just looked down at a passage and went, yep, that's the Most High revealing themselves to me, I still don't understand how that would get us any closer.
What do you mean? So do you mean if you were genuinely heartbroken and convinced, that wouldn't make any difference, you're saying? That would...
No, in fact, sort of in my worldview, I would say if I was heartbroken or in some way in some sort of epistemic crisis, or my life was falling apart, that would predispose me to latching on to any kind of presentation of truth. I would feel like I needed truth more, and I would less trust my intuitions in a state like that than I would when I didn't need certainty to reveal itself to me, and it did.
That's not what I mean, though. I don't mean when you're heartbroken in life, coming to the Bible. I mean, if let's say you happen to read the text and you went, oh, whoa, this is Christ. He is in the Old Testament. He is the King of Kings. He did create me in his image. He knit me in the womb. He died on a cross. Then you'd be humbled by that message if you knew it was true.
How would I know it's true?
This is what I'm saying, that the Most High can reveal himself in, I would believe, any and all means. So just, you would just know it because he's revealed it through whatever means he did it with you.
So this goes back to the conversation we just had. The conversation we just had was, is there a way I could tell the difference between a delusion and an incorrect belief in a different God? And it didn't seem like you had a method for doing that. And now it seems like you've gone back to that same method of going, well, he's going to reveal himself to you.
That is a method. You're saying I don't have a method, and then you're saying that that's the method. I'm saying
you have a method, but you've accepted that the method isn't reliable because other people could use that same method to get to a different result. And you're saying the method's, it's like, do you get what I mean? It's it's a little bit like dowsing to me.
No, I don't agree.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't agree. There's only one ultimacy. There's only, we both stand here in causal relations to the same origin. That's a fact. And I'm saying it's that Most High, when he reveals himself, it's just going to be absolute. There's going to be no negation of it. You know, so it's just, you know, that's what we're talking about, is that which is ultimate. We're not talking about any contingent beings. You know.
Right. So it would reveal itself to me, and I would know that it was that which was ultimate. And through that revelation that I know through all things, how am I splitting that apart from going, yep, done it, and it's Vishnu, or yep, done it, and it's in fact a false revelation, demonic possession, or mental disturbance? It seems like you keep coming back to the method, but the method is the one I'm questioning. So is there other things you add to the method, or something I'm missing from the existing method?
I suppose just humble yourself and just come to the King of Kings. You know,
okay.
Pretty much the method. You know.
Okay. Could I humble myself and come to the King of Kings and it be the wrong king? Or with that method, is that infallible?
I mean, it's impossible to, you know, this is what I'm trying to say to you, that Christ is absolute. He's not, you know, there is no like darkness in him. You see what I'm saying? Yeah.
So so the question is, could I do that? Could I humble myself and come to the wrong King of Kings? And sorry, if you could say your response. No, I couldn't. Could I believe that I had?
I mean, I suppose I wouldn't know what you could believe, because these are not my experience. These are all kind of loaded kind of questions, and that, you know, in a way, slightly loaded.
Yeah.
Are these written down? Are these written down? Like, is there like a list that you have?
No. I mean, some of them are borrowed from street epistemology, but they're like, it's clean language and stuff like that. It's just an idea of asking questions to sort through logical premises and stuff.
He's got a script.
You're free to believe that, but I work with teaching people how to speak every day. So no, I'm not using a script. If you can choose to believe that if you want or not.
No, I'm joking. No, the script was a joke. That's what they always say about us.
Yes, that's how I'd sort of come to this Discord was hearing some debates with Darth Dawkins and people going, he's just working on a script. And I'm like, no, he's not. But I did hear Destiny describe it as a conversation tree or something, and I'm like, it does sometimes, the presuppositionalist arguments do sometimes sound like that. And then I was like, is that true of me? Because I try to like do that when I hear criticism of other people, or particularly criticism of other people that I make or agree with, and I'm like, is that true of me? And I'm getting the feedback now that yes, it seems that it is. But what I'm trying to get at is, it feels that you have face a very high degree of confidence. In fact, you said 100% confidence in that the Christian God, the creator and sustainer of all, created and sustained all. And then when I asked the method to come to know it, we got to a point where it was possible that one could be mistaken, but it seems to oscillate back and forth between is and is not possible, that I could get it right or that I could know whether I've got it right. And that's kind of the thing I'm trying to split apart now, to go, if I were to choose to pick a different worldview, I think you would agree, want to pick it for believe as many true things as possible. And I don't even like the word believe, to think to be the case, as many true things as possible and as few untrue things as possible.
From
what worldview would I be operating from? I should have changed. What worldview would I be operating from? I'm not sure I could give you a sort of one word or intelligible sentence. I think the way I put it is, I'm just muddling through like everyone else. That might be probably somewhere I'd go with it, right? Don't know. Trying to figure it out as I go, making my best guesses, trying to refine those guesses. And I try to go back to previous assumptions or sort of revisit questions or assumptions I might have held in that I might be able to,
I mean,
get it right.
You're
close to right.
an atheist, though. I guess you're an atheist, solipsistic atheist, kind of.
Certainly in the description of, I try not to believe anything, but I certainly don't believe that God created the earth or has any interest in whether gay people get married or anything like that. Just a second. I've been insulted for my clothes, so I'm stripping down in the hope that this looks better. Go ahead. I don't think it is probable that a particular or any particular gods exist.
You're an atheist.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Like I put it more as agnostic in the old sense of the word, not the new sense. Most people go agnostic is like, oh, maybe, I don't know. Whereas the old sense is it is an unanswerable question unless I can have a really clear distinction of what the question I'm asking. It is not an intelligible question, so I'm not able to give an intelligent answer.
Come on, Foxy, did you want to jump in? You there, Foxy?
Yeah, I was just I just heard you saying about being but I just
you're
noises and background noises because of that, like what.
What was I having background noises? I missed that. Sorry, Foxy.
No, it was me. I was just making background noises. Sorry, I was shocked. You seem like not an atheist type, really, in a lot of ways, in the way that you think. So, like, what is it that? So, is there any argument that you think is a good argument that draws you towards the atheistic position, or because? For me, I can't see any way of justifying any kind of atheist worldview, honestly. It doesn't make sense. So, like, maybe you can sort of lay down, like, how you justify things in your worldview.
Sure.
And then...
Yeah,
I'm interested in hearing that a little bit, yeah.
So I think some of it is... I'll start answering, but do correct me if I'm sort of answering in the wrong way. Some of it was, to me, the sort of what I've heard put as the too many faiths argument, which was the first thing that sort of nudged me towards atheism, which I was a good little Christian boy going to a good little Presbyterian Christian school, and we were learning about history, and we learnt about Aboriginals, and they were teaching us about the rainbow serpent that carved all of the rivers in the valleys. And I, as an arrogant little preppy prick, went, well, come on, they don't really believe this. This is ridiculous. Obviously, it's carved by the rivers. The rivers go through the bottom of them. They couldn't really believe this stuff literally, did they? Or something like that, I said to the teacher. And he said, is it any more improbable than what you believe? And I was suddenly like, oh, struck by this thought that I'd taken these things for granted, and then was like, do I have good reasons for believing it? And that sort of started it, where I generally, in terms of what I think to be the atheistic position is, I've heard it put before by Dawkins, although I think Dawkins is an absolute knob, is if I hold that, or the Hindu pantheon doesn't exist, if I hold that Greek gods don't exist, or probably don't exist, sorry, I should be saying, if I hold that this Abrahamic God of the Muslims, Jews and Christians is probably, the Muslims and Jews is probably not the case, then all I need to go is one God further. And if I have any rational reason to doubt any of them, why would I not apply that reason to all of them, unless one presented some sort of case or argument that was far more probable than the others? It seems to me a more rational position to hold, to go, I think they all probably possibly are unlikely.
Well, in your worldview, any belief is going to be just as likely as any other. You're kind of living in more like random chance system where there's no intelligibility anyway.
Well, I'm describing to you the method I'm using to decide to work away from a just flip of the coin probability. If you don't accept it, that's fine. What I would appreciate is if you accept that it's enough for me.
I mean, look, you're a bunch of chemicals, am I right?
I think probably a little bit more complex than that, but yeah, I certainly have doubts that I have a eternal, immortal spirit, and that there is a God. So yeah, sure, I'm happy to go with that.
Yeah, you're just a bunch of H2O molecules and all kinds of calcium molecules and all of that.
But I've been put together very well. I mean, I'm a very well-aligned bunch of molecules.
Well, now you can't. Now you sound a little bit like a creationist or something like that. We can't have that. So it's like a Bible verse. I'm beautifully and wonderfully made.
Could be. Are you a creationist? Do you think? What do you think about the case for evolution versus creationism?
Yeah, I basically think that creation makes a lot more sense. Yeah, okay. Young Earth seems to make more scientific sense than old Earth.
I'm guessing, and I don't mean this in an insulting way, but I'm guessing you don't go as far as flat Earth, though.
No, I don't like flat Earth. No,
I've just because I've been chatting to flat earthers for like the last 3 weeks before I came in. No, more like 2 months before coming into this room. And interestingly, most of them are creationists. Most of them have taken a literal interpretation of the Bible, and they've gotten to certain verses and gone, "Corners of the earth, that it's flat and immovable." And so they sort of, is there a way that you get to creationism but stop there before flat Earth?
It's a slightly loaded question, isn't it? But like, I just think the science for the globe is reasonable.
Right.
Don't think the flat Earth doesn't make sense.
Yeah, so that's the way I go with most of where I go then, which is like, I think the science for things like the Big Bang or abiogenesis are like, goodness gracious, they are reaching a lot, and the further from us that we need to reach back into the past, or the more guesswork we need to do in that science, the less trust I'm going to put in it, less likelihood I'm going to lean on it. So yeah, that's sort of generally where I go for the atheistic position as well. Go with probabilities.
Do you believe that do you believe the universe is probably like sort of 13, 14 billion years old?
I think it's, I don't know about the number. I could easily, like if somebody said it's actually 130 billion years old, I wouldn't sort of lie awake with that reorienting my entire mind, but I would be astounded if it's 6,000 years old. That would bottle my brain.
Sure, yeah. I'm just trying to focus on your view for a minute, just to see.
Sure, yeah. So I think 13. Well, I think that argument is at least when I've researched where that came from. It came from, we looked out at planets and we came up with this measurement for their movement called redshift. And when we measured them, they're all redshifting, and that tells us that, like a Doppler effect of a car going by, the planets are retreating from us. And then we've used that alone to reason that we all started off at the same singular point and there was probably a Big Bang. I think that's based on so much guesswork that I'm like, But that it's very, 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 very old, yes, I think that's quite probable.
I mean, how would you feel if I told you that we can't do a parallax trigonometry on upon the heavens, if you like, from the Earth, above 100 light years approximately. If you look in peer review, 100 light years is like the maximum. So once you start going way out into deep space and stuff like that, you're not going to be able to have these. You're not going to be able to actually calculate it via parallax trigonometry. Right. So, which just means that we don't know the distance, the distant galaxies. We don't actually know the distance.
Sure.
And also, we actually don't know concretely the one-way speed of light, because we can't actually test the one-way.
Yes, I saw that recently. In that.
So what do they base the distances on then, if we can't measure it?
I mean,
I think it's guesswork, but yeah, I think that they do the idea of the parallax is from one side of the Earth's orbit to the other, a little bit like if you bobbed your head from side to side with your finger in front of you, you would see your finger moving and the further object staying the same. And you can, this is what Face of Youre is talking about as trigonometry. You can use that to sort of make an estimate, make an educated guess as to how far one is from the other.
But apparently,
both are from us.
Apparently, that only works. Apparently, that the upper limit, like the absolute upper limit, is like 80, 90, 100. I think I'm adding 10 on there. Light years, 100 light years. So, like, the two-way speed of light, as we know it, it would take 100 years, which is nothing. like, so which, you guys need to get way more than 100 years. You need to get way out, like 13.7 billion or 14.5 billion, which we don't know the distance and we don't know the speed of light. And they normally crunch the age of the universe. They take the distance and then the speed, which neither are known at all, and they crunch a number, which is completely ridiculous,
So do we
Maybe
know?
they get it from the
If
red
that's
shift.
true, that's pretty epic. That is just all bullshit. Pretty much.
Well, and like he was saying, it's based on the assumption that the speed of light is a constant, right? And
Is there a book on this? Can I
back the
read
speed of light and
something on this?
photons. Yeah, it's called physics. Get into it.
Wow.
No, what you want is go Wikipedia. You type something like one-way speed of light. Go Wikipedia.
Yeah, I
there's a
know that
video.
one,
There's a
but
Veritasium video on it
I don't
recently,
know.
which is showing that we only ever do it by bouncing the light.
Yeah,
So
I
we
know
fire
that,
it.
but I don't know how they measure the distance from.
You often find turning up
please
there
spare me.
are like physicists
send
trying to
it.
explain the Earth to people who obstinately refuse to accept it. And it's very funny to listen to, but it really illuminating. I've learned so much about astronomy and all of this stuff lately, just by listening to the arguments.
So yeah, I mean, but it's interesting, isn't it? That we don't,
Oh,
Go on.
I was just asking if there was a book.
I haven't read one. I mean, there's a book called the Bible, but you're Catholic, so you won't.
shit.
I'll find you one, Beethoven.
Thanks for that.
Go on, Face.
Maybe just scribble on the top of the Bible, like church fathers or something. And I'm just kidding. Don't worry.
Oh, man. Don't derail this right now.
The ones you don't accept. Oh wait.
Yeah. So where are we? So yeah, but so you guys believe in 14 point, which is fine. Don't get me wrong, that's fine. I mean,
So
I think it's
if I could
reasonable.
just correct, believe is the word I try to avoid using. I think it might be the case.
But that's so vague to take a non-position on anything, like even that you exist or
not
what-
really. I think it's the case that I'm traveling at a certain speed when I'm driving my car. But to say I know what speed,
you believe this, you believe that. You believe that the universe is 14 billion years old.
but
you
I'm
don't know the
rejecting that
distance.
assertion. If you're describing what I think about things, then I think it would be more effective to go, okay, I think it's the case. Sure, I think it's possible. Yeah, because I'm not going to describe your worldview and change the words you say. It would just be
Well,
inaccurate.
you do a bit.
Oh, I
that's
try
just
not
good
to.
enough.
Sorry, if I do in future, please correct me. I'm trying to. That's one of the things I'm deliberately practicing, and so I don't want to be changing or mischaracterizing what you're saying.
Cool. Go on, Beethoven. Did you want to?
I said, well, that's it. To me, it seems just like semantics. Like you don't like the word belief, therefore, I'd rather say. It seems to me.
Some of it is semantics, yes. I think the difference, at least for me, in it is much more like I've been saying to Face. It's about efficacy rather than philosophy for me. If I believe something to be the case, I think that things come from that, which is that I'm less likely to question them or challenge them or accept other people to challenge them. And I think that's ineffective. And I also think then in conversation, when we say, I know X or I know Y, I think that is, one, inaccurate, and sure, there's the whole philosophical side of it, and you're a solipsist and blah, 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 blah. But I also just think it's an ineffective way of having a conversation with somebody. If you go, look, I know you got that email and you chose not to reply, that's a crap conversation. Whereas if you say, I sent you that email and I would have thought you'd seen it, it's an easier conversation to have. It's less offensive to the other person's sensibilities to describe it that way. So that's why I try to stick with what I think, whereas what I believe, I try to not believe anything.
I think, but when you say you think something is the case, it just means you believe it's the case. It really, there isn't really much distinction there. Believe is,
Believe is just something you hold to be true. So
exactly, yeah.
and you could still be wrong about it. So
Sure. So yeah, the difference would be how willing I am to accept challenge to it.
for example, I would say I believe in my sense perceptions. I can't prove it, but I believe
Sure.
it.
And so
Yeah,
when you were
I don't see anything wrong with phrasing it that way.
yeah, no, I'm not saying you don't phrase it that way. I'm just saying if you're describing how I conceive of the world, it would be probably more effective to say, so you think it's the case, because that's how I'm describing it to you.
But that's just a synonym, isn't it? It's just going to be something that you tentatively hold to be the case till you find new evidence.
Yeah, sure.
Sure, which is like belief, yeah. It's going to be in that camp, I think.
It's certainly, yeah, they're certainly very nearby. The tents aren't too far from one another, yeah.
Sure. It's like, I'm not trying to sneak in the word belief, or anything like that. It's just it's just how, but yeah, yeah. But anyway, so you hold it to be the case that the universe is, let's say, more than 6,000 years old.
Yes.
And you actually have no way to know that, because
That's
all
correct.
of your dating methods, are all nonsense. When I say no way to know, what I mean is you don't even really have an even remotely even weak justification, because we don't know the one-way speed of light, and we don't know the distances to the distant galaxies. So we're crunching numbers. We don't know.
Would you say that testing and guessing and testing those guesses is a good method, even if they might be, as you describe, flawed and unable to reach a place where we can know?
I mean, I suppose you make a start, and then you keep refining, and stuff like that. But then, let's say we're still in the midst of refining. Let's say we're in the early days of refining. Maybe we started out with some poor assumptions or something.
Sure.
If that's the case, or we have bias or whatever, then it's going to be a hindrance, because we might proceed with a paradigm which is completely wrong and try and force and come up with patching theories to save theories which are wrong.
Sure. So we might proceed from a paradigm which is wrong. I would absolutely agree with that.
Right. Sure.
So what would be the best way if we were, because I think we might both agree that any of us find ourselves in a paradigm that is wrong. What would be the best way to deal with that, or to manage that?
Well, I suppose you would change to because if you knew you're wrong, then it just means, I guess, the counterfactual is maybe the right term here, would be correct, I guess, right?
So how would we find out if something was counterfactual?
I just mean, what I mean is, once you find out something's wrong, let's say it's wrong that you didn't steal my car,
right,
then I would just know that you did. That's what I mean.
Sure. So how would we come to find out that I didn't steal your car?
No, but I mean, that's ridiculous. It depends on the situation,
Right. Yeah. So in any situation, if we were broaden it out and say, I hold for something to be the case, and I might be proceeding on a paradigm that is wrong, or have made some faulty assumptions along the way, or something like that, how could we find out whether that was wrong? What would be a good method in general for whether I stole your car, or whether God is real?
I mean, I just honestly, I don't
or how
understand
old
that
the
kind of
universe.
question.
Well, because I would offer some methods, and I would say challenging and questioning that paradigm could be effective, and testing and measuring could be effective. In fact, I would challenge the paradigm through testing.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so take the universe. So that's the example that we was kind of last on, because the things got a bit weird there, confusing. But okay, so the universe. So what kind of testing can we do to try and get an age, let's say, to a non-biased age from the, we have no data. What do we have? We can
I don't think we have.
Years out.
I don't think it's correct to categorize as we have no data. I think what we do have is data that you have very good reason to question, but that's not the same as we don't have data.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, but I mean, nothing indicative of, let's say, 1 million years.
Okay.
Let alone like 13.8 billion.
Sure. So would you say developing new methods to test it and having them compete against one another in some way, and blinding one person's results from another's might be an effective way to go about it? So the blinding might be an attempt, although possibly ineffective, to sort of subvert the paradigm, or sort of not be beholden to it. And the challenging and testing might be like, we do it with a different method. We use multiple methods, and we see where they converge and diverge.
Yeah. I mean, perhaps, I don't know. I mean, these questions are quite long. They're quite kind of, and I don't even know what we're even now disagreeing on, because each time we kind of bring up something, then there's questions connected, but they're not really, they're vague. They're just highly vaguely connected to the... I can
make it more concrete for you then, if you like, which is, I think we get better with testing and challenging. And I think that is the case for things like as I've said before, I've got skepticism or whatever about, g'day, Lost, about the age of the universe. I think that's an absolutely good question you asked. But when it comes to my motorbike, it's really, really, really well engineered. I mean, they finished engineering them in the 80s, so it's not super modern. But if I compare it to an older bike I had, which was in the 60s, I can see that through that method of testing one's assumption, and if somebody went, here's a manual for making a bike, and it was made sort of 1,500 years ago, and we haven't changed it, we've deliberately not changed it, I think that would be more likely to fall into this problem you're talking about of being stuck within a paradigm that might be wrong. And I think it would be more probable that that was wrong than one that was constantly updated and tested.
Yeah, here's a question. So, wow, I mean, you're rambling on quite a lot. It's really
But do you get the
confusing,
point
but,
I'm making, though? I think you get the point I'm making, right?
Well, it's just not concise enough. The more
Okay.
concise the points, the better they
Sure. By testing and updating, we get more right. That's how we challenge the paradigm. If I had a book that was 1,500 years old that told me all of the answers, that seems to me more indicative of a paradigm that might be wrong.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. I mean, yeah, I mean, I was going to say something. I don't know. You've actually kind of confused.
I'm sorry. I did go on for a bit there. I'm sorry about that, Face.
Yeah, that's okay. What was the last thing that there must be something that we're tussling on that we're not agreeing on? Because the proposition seems to be moving. It seems the proposition is moving the whole time.
Yeah,
there isn't really a concrete agreement.
What we were
actually
talking about was the
understanding
age of the universe. You seem
like,
to want to know from
Yeah.
me what I held to
Yeah,
be
and
the
you
case.
just basically say, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like to everything else. You just basically say, you have no idea.
Yep.
And it's to just test it. We'll proceed with no knowledge and test to show that we're probably wrong, you know.
Yeah, to become less wrong over time, but we do that by proving how those who preceded us were wrong.
Well, like, listen, to know that you were wrong in the past, you'd have to know you're right. And if you can't know anything to be true, then you're never ever going to be able to have anything greater than you have now.
Sure.
According to that, like, people in 200 years would just find out we're wrong today, and
Yep.
then people in 200 years from then would find out that we're wrong then. So it's a never-ending like system.
Sure, absolutely. Do you think that that's the case today? If we go outside of the
Is
realm
that not
of...
a massive problem for you then?
No, that's exciting for me. If we go out of the realm of talking about religion, we go back to the engineering of motor vehicles or any topic of your choosing, but particularly
That was the question.
Particularly
That was
one...
it.
Sorry.
I remember now.
Go on.
That was it. I remember when you brought up the motorcycle and that. I was going to say, well, is a motorcycle evidence of design? You know, is one question. And are you more complex or have more information or whatever it might be than the motorcycle?
Yes and yes.
Right.
It seems to me,
So
sorry,
is
I
the
gave a
mo-
definite
yeah.
answer. It seems yes. It seems yes
Sure.
that it looks like the motorcycle has been designed, and yes, it looks to me like I'm more complex than a motorcycle.
So we could say, perhaps, that, you know, that's evidence that a human being is designed. It's not proof, but it might raise the chances that maybe a man is designed.
It certainly would raise the chances to me. I think I would absolutely agree with that. It seems to me that there would be better case to say that a man is designed than, say, a rock. Yep.
Yeah, and it probably makes more sense to say a man is designed than a result of randomness.
It certainly intuitively makes more sense to me. Yes, whether it logically does, it proposes. If that was the only thing I was measuring, I might be able to go, yeah, that could be more probable than randomness.
Yeah, I mean, we could even probably do some sort of deductive. So I don't know what it would be right now, but you know what it's like. We could probably come up with some premises that seem reasonable that would lead to some kind of truth that, you know, of the proposition. You know.
Sure. Possibly. I mean, the thing I would add on to the other side of the randomness, which I feel is somewhat strawmans the position for evolution, is it is randomness, but there is reason to believe that complexity from time to time, however incredibly rarely, does emerge from simplicity, and we need to just add in the fact that there are in the observable universe billions and billions and billions of places that it could happen, and there is, according to the age of the universe that we have reason to doubt, billions and billions and billions of years in which it could happen. So with that chance that something might emerge, and with that incredible expanse of time and places and things happening, it becomes less of an improbability.
Well, no, even like it's I haven't got my maths with me right now, but the amount of like seconds in the universe, you know, like since the beginning of a 14 billion year universe, when you do it in powers of 10, it's not that much. It might be 10 to the 40th power or something like that, really small.
Mm-hmm.
I think the amount of atoms in the whole universe is apparently something like 10 to the 80th power.
I think it's such arrogance that they think they can calculate that. I think I share with you your incredulity when you talk about those things. Sorry, I just wanted to interject to say where I agree with you.
I think it's probably reasonable though. They probably take clusters at random and then they sort of crunch them. I think it's probably reasonable. But anyway, so yeah, but the chances of a single simple protein forming by chance, this is all legitimate maths. I mean, we could have the maths all out, it's like 1 in 10 to the 164th power, if I'm right. It's definitely something very similar to that, which is huge. It's like, each power times it by itself. I think it might be 10 times, which is huge when you're working with exponential growth like that. It's more than that. It's just, you can't even say it. It's not even exponential. It's just like ridiculous.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah,
vanishingly improbable. Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
I would agree. I would agree with that. It crushes my mind too. I think that it's a sort of extraordinary improbability. What I wrestle with is it an impossibility? Does it go from very, 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 very unlikely to is there some reason or some way that I could make it an impossibility? And that, if it was an impossibility, that would make me lean more towards believing in some sort of creator. The problem on that side for me would then go, why, if I'm using this reasoning to say that complexity doesn't come from nowhere, aren't I just invoking complexity from nowhere when I say God?
Well, not exactly. If something's just necessary, then it's, you keep on asking these loaded questions. You make you start like 20 premises, and then you ask a question at the end. I don't know. It's like you've been trained by the worst. But anyway.
Trained by the worst. Sorry, I don't mean to ask these in an offensive way. I really don't mean to be rude to you. So I'm sorry for that.
It's fine. I mean, I deserve it. I ask people how they know they exist all day long. It's it's that time. So.
Prove it.
But yeah.
Yeah, I see. That's the challenge. That's the challenge for the sort of more true solipsists that think that it's possible that they are the only thing that exists. And then you say to them, "How do you know that you exist?" I mean, I think that's a fair question to ask. I think it's good to challenge, and for all of us, because some of my whole interest in learning how to speak or disagree or come to a meeting of minds well is because I hold as an important value that I go, I might be wrong. If the way I reason that is, if me and another human being are disagreeing on something, it's worse than 50-50 that I'm right. Because if I hold that they're wrong and they hold that I'm wrong, right there it's 50-50, but we could both be wrong and we cannot both be right. So me talking to you, and you sound to me like a very intelligent, reasonable person who's read a lot and knows a lot about this stuff, I need to go, it's worse than 50% chance that I'm right. So I need to be able to find a way to disagree so they can hear my ideas and possibly they change, but I also need to do it in a way that I don't be rude to people or mischaracterize what they're saying, so I mishear or don't hear what they're saying, and I miss out on an opportunity.
Yeah. Okay, so I suppose that's where we was at. So we pointed out, just probabilistically, just reasoning, that the chances of a single simple protein forming, the most simple protein forming by chance is absurd. It's like 1 in 10 with 165 to 165th power, I believe.
Sure.
Which is it's completely absurd. It's it's out of the realms of what's called statistical possibility. Anything above 10 to the 50th power, which is a little bit over half the amount of atoms in the whole universe, or not just atoms. I think that includes all the particulars that make up the atom. But yeah, that's considered impossible. If you was going to try and win the lottery, and that was your chances of winning, which is you wouldn't be winning the lottery, put it that way.
Right. And the counter to that is, unless I was buying a ticket every day for 13.4 billion years. And then that number is so large that they end up being 1 over 1. Is the argument from the other side?
No, it's bullshit. There's the amount of seconds in a 14 billion year old universe is only 1 in 10 to the 15th power.
Okay. And then how many places in sort of how many planets in the Goldilocks zone?
Yeah, I mean,
because we've got to multiply that, the number of years, by the number of places, right? I think the answer I don't know is absolutely valid, because the sort of the known or observable universe is the phrase they keep using. I've never heard any rational explanation or reason to believe that that is the end of the universe. It seems to be that's as far as we can see, and that to me, it's like looking out in my front yard and going, I guess that's all there is because I've not seen any more. And I get the impression that's what humans have done since time immemorial, and that is the furthest they've seen. They conclude that is the furthest there is, and they keep getting proven wrong. I don't know why I should trust us this time any more than they should have trusted themselves that time.
But why would you hold to something that the odds are basically, patently absurd and impossible? Why do you hold to something like that?
Because I hold to that being more probable because the other side to me seems even more improbable. It doesn't seem to solve the problem of complexity and in fact makes it far harder, far tougher, which is you now, in order to explain this thing that is improbable, have invoked this thing that is even less probable to me. You've gone, because I don't... Go on, sorry.
No, because obviously the things that we're talking about, they would just stand in causal relations to that which is necessary, and the thing that is necessary isn't going to have any kind of external explanation, no matter how complex it is or is not. It's just going to be necessary, self-sustained and self-explained.
Right. This gets back though to where we started, which is if I define that something is necessary and then I point at that thing and say it's God, that is a sort of self-referential. How do you talk about that in sort of debating or logicking, which is I've defined this thing as the thing that is, therefore it is the thing that is. It seems like it's a way of reducing that dissonance or confusion with how something could be the case when it seems so improbable by just invoking that it is not that improbable because I invoked this thing. It doesn't to me. Where do we get to that it is necessary? Maybe that's where I'm missing. Why do we conclude, is it because of the complexity and the alternate answer is so improbable we need, therefore, a cause for that is necessary?
No.
Okay.
No, it's just basically, the Most High reveals himself to at least some people, right? Now, what we're saying is, you guys, that's not going to convince you. So we're trying to reason with you. We're saying that for you to have like intelligibility, knowledge, truth, wisdom, dignity, morals, like you name it, there's not going to be a single thing that you guys are going to be able to put forward and actually give any kind of justifiable explanation why it is the way it is. It's just going to be, I don't know, randomness, who knows, who cares, which you don't live like that. You live like you're an actual authentic human being that, you have morals, you have knowledge, you have wisdom, right? These are all things that you're borrowing from the Christian worldview. You live in Christ's universe. You just apparently are in denial,
So it doesn't, when I ask you the question of how do we know it's necessary, it seems like you say to me an almost sort of a preacher-like response that sounds to me like rhetoric, but not really reasoning. The God which is that most high, I think you said, it doesn't to me answer the question of like, if I said, I'm trying to do it like I imagine if I was trying to convince somebody of anything, or in a court trying to convince somebody that somebody, a jury that somebody's guilty or innocent. And I said, what's your reason for that? And they went and said, well, because like some similar phrase to God is that which is most high. I don't follow it, I guess is what I'm getting at. It sounds to me like rhetoric.
Sure. I mean, well, that's not really a refutation of what I'm saying, because you could just say it sounds like rhetoric or anything.
Well, rhetoric rather than reason. That's the differentiation I'm pointing. I would say, I'm giving you reasoned arguments about why I think it could be the case that life evolved, which is you're positing it's very, very, very improbable, and I'm saying yes. And then I'm reasoning if it's happening a lot of time, if it has the possibility to happen in a lot of places over a very long time, that makes it more probable because it's stacking something on the other side of the equation. That's a reasoned argument, right? Whereas if I just said, well, universe is a mysterious place, that would be reasoning from rhetoric. And it sounds to me like you're reasoning from rhetoric rather than reason.
Yeah. So like anything that's going to be, contingent will just be that which depends on that which is necessary, right? You hold to a necessary being. Is that fair?
Sorry, I lost you at the end there, Face.
You yourself hold to a necessary being if you're a logical human being.
I hold to a necessary being. Say again, sorry, Fox? Is Fox hot micing?
I just said he cut out for a second.
Oh, right. So go again, Face. You were saying about that I hold that there is a necessary being?
Yeah. I mean, if you believe in contingent states of affairs, then surely you must believe in that which is necessary.
Can you reason me to there? Can you explain to me how I should get there, and maybe I'll agree?
Because contingent states of affairs literally mean not necessary and dependent on. And then obviously for them to be dependent on, they can't be dependent on contingent things, because remember, that's the set that we're trying to ground. So they're just going to be contingent on that which is necessary.
Right. So all things were once children, so they are all contingent upon mothers. That's the kind of thing you're saying. And then we need to get back to go, what started that chain?
We're saying if you have contingency, that's just going to necessitate necessary.
It's going to necessitate necessary. So if we chase all of these contingent chains of causality to their core, we get to somewhere that then we invoke something as necessary.
Mm. Sure. And that's your worldview as well. You also do.
I think so. I think I'm understanding you, and it sounds to me reasonable. It's sort of that necessary thing, I guess, for many atheists might be like the Big Bang. It was a necessary thing that set all of the things into motion, and all of that randomness over many billions of years and billions of places led to what we are now. So what you're saying is I believe in that necessary thing too. It's just I don't give it a name.
Sure. So,
Okay,
well, I mean,
sure.
we probably have a whole different view of what that thing is. But like, why do you believe that it is not a mind that is fundamental to all contingent states of affairs?
Why do I believe that it's not a mind? My conception of a mind is that the software needs to run on hardware. So the mind requires a brain. I don't think that plants have minds, and I think everything that I would describe as having a mind has a brain, and I don't understand how one could have an immaterial brain. I think a brain is material, is physical.
Yeah, but earlier on you were talking about rhetoric and not actually giving any reasoning. The things you're saying, you're just giving me just very vague, unconnected things. If you can just put things into argument form so I can critique any premises,
okay,
that would be better.
The premise, when I'm saying why I don't think it's a mind, I'm saying premise one is minds are housed within brains. And premise two, I think, is brains are physical. Therefore, a non-physical mind I hold to be very unlikely to be the case. Does that help?
Well, it doesn't follow. And
Okay.
how would you defend even just premise one? How would you defend that?
How would I defend premise one, which is, is minds are housed within brains?
Well, I mean, you've worded it vague, because they are housed within brains, but
Okay.
do they have to be housed within brains? And in fact, this is the thing: when you say brains, you're assuming like a whole metaphysic there. You're assuming that the brain itself isn't just something that's in the mind. Yeah, you're making that assumption that there's not a big dream in which there's a brain in the dream that you believe is physical. That is your assumption.
Yes, it's an assumption. It's a working assumption I run on is that I'm not in a fever dream or not in a computer program. I behave as if I'm
but
not.
Because
if you invoke that every time, it's like we start to have a discussion, and then you go, "Oh, but you think everything's the case, so it might not be." It ends up seeming like when we get somewhere in a conversation, you go back to this, "But you're a solipsist." Which seems like a weak retreat, if I'm honest.
Well, what's the thing we're disagreeing on again?
Whether there could be a mind that is the necessary thing that
exactly.
requires all other things.
This isn't. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So look, you're saying that your premise, your argument is that the mind requires the brain, but that is completely unfounded assumption. For all you know, there is no such thing as a brain. It's all in the mind. You have no way of knowing that.
Well, so I'm not saying I know that. I'm saying I think that to be the case, and then I'm giving what I think to be a fairly rational, deductive reason. Sure, it could be a sort of black swan fallacy kind of thing, which is I've never seen a mind without being housed in a brain, therefore I'm concluding that it doesn't exist. But I'm not. What I'm trying to say is every time at least with my definition of mind, every time I've known of any one of those, it has been housed within a brain, and a brain is a physical thing. A brain is a physical thing such that even if it gets, if it suffers trauma, it will change the functioning of the mind. You can change someone's behavior by giving them frontal lobe damage. You can make them turn them into an asshole.
How do you know a brain, or why do you believe a brain is a physical thing?
I think it's a physical thing because I don't know. That's a good question. I've blown out kangaroos' minds. Shouldn't admit to that. I've seen textbooks of it, and I've read studies of it, and I'm fascinated by neuroscience, and a lot of it talks about that relationship between the mind and the brain. That's why I conclude that minds are emergent from brains. I think mind is pretty much the word we use for what the brain does.
But that still, it's just, all you're doing is just assuming. It's like you're just assuming your position is correct, and then you're using that assumption. No, that's tu quoque. That's a fallacy. You don't even know I exist, so you can't really invoke that. But
that's what I'm saying. You keep returning back to this, but you don't know anything thing. And I'm saying, yeah, I think it to be the case. I'm agreeing with you. I don't know it to be the case. I think it to be the case based on reasoning, and like I said, just muddling through. But based on some of the things, I think it's reasonable to assume that. Do you think it's unreasonable, my assertion that minds are a function of the brain?
Like, what do you mean by a brain? That all you know about a brain is just the phenomena that you think you see in the mind. It's just things that you see in the mind. You have imagery of brains that are all part of your mind. How do you know that the brains are not? How do you know the brains ever existed in the physical realm in the first place? What is physical in your worldview?
I think physical is. I think I'd probably use a similar definition to anybody else. Stuff I can touch.
He's kind of saying that the mind is the primary thing. You start with the mind, and then you get to the body and the brain or whatever. So the mind is at the bottom of it, pretty much.
Right. I can understand why that would be somebody else's worldview, and I don't mean to sort of negate their worldview, but I don't think I need to share it. I don't think it doesn't rationally follow from me that a mind could precede a brain in which to house it, because a mind. Well, maybe let's define mind. What is a mind? What do we mean when we say mind? What do you mean when you say mind, I guess, is the question I'm asking.
Yeah, it's going to be like the place of consciousness, part of the person that can think, feel, experience, those kind of things.
So when we do have physical, I want to say like interruption, or if we physically do things to the brain, like TMCR, I think it's transcranial magnetic stimulation, TCMS. You're
begging the question.
Sorry?
You're begging the question. You're assuming that brain is an actual physical thing.
Yes, yeah. I'm trying to test that.
You don't even have a definition.
I'm trying to test that.
You don't even have a working definition. You can't.
Why can I not test it?
All you have access to is the phenomena, right? That's all you're going to have. So, which is going to be something that's like basically mind dependent, because you are a conscious mind. So everything is going to be filtered, even if there is that physical realm, it's going to be filtered through the mind. So it's going to be indistinguishable from your perspective.
You keep making that assertion and I keep rejecting it. I don't think because I say I don't know things doesn't mean I'm not able to think things and come to those conclusions rationally.
Do you have a defeater? Or do you have a rational response to it?
That I say again what you said, and I'll see if I can think of a defeater for it.
So you have access only to the phenomena, which would be the same from your perspective, whether it was purely mind dependent or if it was kind of dependent on both a external physical world and a mind interpreting it. You're going to have no way again of distinguishing between the two.
I've got no way of distinguishing between two. That's what I'm trying to get to, my way of reasoning between the two. That is dependent upon my sensing. My mind is doing that, but I don't see that as being in any way incompatible with what I believe, nor what you believe.
So when you say your mind, what do you mean by that? What is your mind? Are you your mind, or is your mind something separate to you that you own or you have?
I certainly don't think it's separate from me. I'm not a sort of dualist in that way. I think that a mind is an emergent property of the emergent phenomena from the brain, and I think the brain is housed mostly in my head, but goes all the way to my fingertips.
Do you accept though that the brain, as you have experienced them, may not exist? They may just be an illusion within the mind.
It's incredibly improbable, but sure, I guess possible.
No, you can't say that. You have okay. What is your rational justification or your chain of inference to show that it would be highly improbable?
That I have a brain, or that minds come from brains.
What did you just assert? You just asserted that.
I think that I have a brain that goes all the way to my fingertips.
No, did anyone catch what I just said then? Like dog and fly. This guy keeps on throwing me off. He's just so vague and so confused. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying to keep up. I'm just doing something too. I'll try to listen more intently.
Mm.
So for me, the reason I think it is something that is emergent from physical properties is if we physically disturb it in some way with transcranial magnetic stimulation, or indeed trauma, like the story of the guy getting a pipe blown through his head and he still managed to survive, that it changes someone's behavior, which is most of what most of us, I think, mean when we say mind, where we're describing, exactly as you say, the part that can think, feel. We can disturb or change the way they think based on altering the physical properties of their mind. That's why I think that a mind is an emergent property of a brain. Alter the brain, the mind changes. Alter the mind, the brain changes. That's the way I reason it.
So, okay. The proposition that you asserted was that it's highly improbable that the things that look physical are purely just mind-dependent, images, or And I'm asking for a chain of inference to justify that.
A chain of inference that I think that physical things are physical. Are real, that I'm not in a brain in a bucket. Is that what you're asking? I feel like we've gone back to the start of the conversation. I don't have a defeater. Being that I don't know things, I'm not going to be able to present you meaningfully a way that I can prove something is the case, when part of my worldview is that I don't think it is possible to prove things are the case. So if we can get past that would be effective, I think. But to keep going back to, but you can't reason that from first inferences because you don't have a Christian worldview, to me doesn't make any sense, nor is it a really useful way to go, in my opinion.
I didn't say any of that. It's just, look, you're saying it's highly. I said that it could be the case that there's a physical world and that you are filtering that.
Yep.
Or it could be the case that you are just, that the physical world doesn't exist and that the physical experience within the mind is all that exists. That's just all that there is.
Yep.
And you said it's highly unlikely, that would be highly unlikely. So I said, okay, fine then. Can you please give me the chain of inference to justify, not to prove absolutely? I'm not talking about absolute certainty. We're just talking about some reasoning. That's all. Some form of actual reasoning.
Sure.
Us.
That I think the physical world exists.
Kidding.
Sure. The only access I have to experiencing things like this are from dreams and the like. And dreams have different qualities to what I experience right now. So while it is possible that what I'm experiencing is a dream or something non-physical, if it was something non-physical that wasn't a dream, I wouldn't have enough access to what that might be like in order to determine that it's not that. Of the things that I do have access to, such as dreams, this doesn't seem much like that, though I hold it could be the case. I just think it's unlikely.
Yeah, so you don't have a rational justification that, for your belief then?
Sure, fine.
Okay, so you're irrational in your belief.
Obviously, I don't agree to that, but if it'll move the conversation on, sure.
No, you do. If you're not rational, then all I did is I just switched the not for the irrational.
What seems irrational to me is to go, I've picked one book that gives me all these answers to all these questions, including the age of the universe, and I've decided that that's not true, despite accepting that people could draw conclusions from a faulty paradigm, and decide that that's true, and decide that somebody else, because he holds doubt about certain things or most things, is therefore irrational and I'm the rational one. That seems to me a wildly irrational position.
Yeah, but you're misrepresenting him a bit because he.
Sure, he's misrepresenting me too. He's taking my completely reasonable rationalizing about why I think something is the case and reducing it to "you've got no idea," so that he can go, "Well, if you've got no idea, you've got no idea." And to me, it's a transparent tactic.
I mean, it's just logic. That's all we did is we reasoned using the standard rules of inference.
Yeah, so on that we disagree. On that we disagree. I don't think that sounds logical, because I think it's reasonable to stack probabilities one way or the other, even if we accept the base assumptions we might be building them on might be faulty. I don't think we just go, okay, it's 50-50. I think why 50-50 and not 49-51 or 70-30 or 100-0? Why would you pick one or the other?
I already told you the answer to that. Answered it many, many, many times.
Yeah, because you wanted to tip one way or the other, but you're giving them equal weighting and then going, why shouldn't they fall one way or the other? Why give them equal weighting? You give them equal. Here's the reason I think. I think if you go, I give them equal weighting, you can throw away my fairly reasonable argument that I can reason things probabilistically. And if the probabilistic to going, I just go through these, I muddle through life probabilistically, is strong. So you reduce probability to 50-50 to say, therefore it's weak. And I keep rejecting that assertion. You keep bringing it back.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, you're pretty much talking to yourself. You're not really interacting with me. You're just kind of, I don't know, just trying to make a straw man of what I've said,
Right. Possibly. I mean, it doesn't feel to me that's what I'm doing. I feel like I've listened to you and heard you. I think that the same problems you propose with my worldview, which I accept are there, we've found similar ones in your worldview, which is that we are not able to determine the difference between revelation and demonic possession, revelation by the wrong god, or mental disturbance. So we get to that same problem there, even though there it would be worse than 50-50. So yeah, we've both got this problem that we aren't able to know absolutely something that is the case.
Okay, do you know that absolutely?
No, I think that's probable.
Okay, is it true that you think it's probable?
I think it is probable.
How do you know that?
I don't.
Could you be wrong about that?
I could. Regularly.
You are trolling. Right, Alien, you're trolling, right?
I've not spoken at all.
He is trolling, right?
Me?
No, Alien Ghost. Alien Robot Ghost.
In a single word.
He hasn't said anything.
Definitely. Then who are you arguing with? I keep seeing him light up.
Face of Youre.
I'm sorry. Then Face of Youre.
You talk, though. There's no reason why I should be light up.
See, you're not lighting up when you talk. My phone is messed up.
Alien Robot Ghost, you're sounding a bit robot-y.
Maybe it's my connection. Yeah. You certainly sound like you're trolling with all the questions you're asking.
He's not.
Maybe that's why I got muted, because my microphone or something.
Yeah, it sounds like it's more connection issue than microphone, Alien.
I'll work on it. Sorry.
Sure.
So riding on eggshells the whole time you've been talking to Face of Youre?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like, oh goodness, I have to redo everything. I sometimes find that when I'm like, oh God, I made an assumption and now I built stuff on that assumption. Now I've got to change things. You know, like when you thought somebody lied to you and then you like track down and figure out what happened. You're like, oh goodness, I've been hating that person for a week.
Yeah. My apologies, Alien Robot Ghost.
So what's your opinion on the conversation then, if you've been listening, Shay?
I think he's asking too much. And I liked very much when you summarized it and you said that, well, he being Face of Youre, is trying to break it down to a 50-50 chance of this or that, the brain in the vat or the real thing. So I think that I was waiting for you to go into it a little bit more and describe why you think it's not 50-50 and what ratio you really think it is. You think it's 99-1 or something like that. But the questions that, well, how do you know that? And 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 how do you know that? It just that's what I meant by the trolling. So
it's relevant though. So
it's the presupposition. My understanding is it's a presuppositionalist approach, which is to continually ask exactly that question. Somebody messaged me when we started the conversation saying he's just going to ask you, how do you know that? So yeah, which is to say, if you can't know that you know all of these things and your base assumptions are off, which I understand, because I do. When I started to flirt with the possibility that I don't know anything, it was an uncomfortable thing, and I think it is. I think people when they come to the presuppositionalist reasoning for God are doing so because they really, really want to quell that dissonance, that dissonance of maybe I don't know stuff, and maybe nobody really knows, and is an offense to our sensibilities. Like, as many people say, I know that my senses, I've got my senses to perceive the world. What, do you want me to doubt them? It's such an offense that they go, no, therefore God, and I don't need to go there anymore. And I feel like I get it, although I don't agree.
And that's where it starts to sound like
trolling. You actually know stuff, though, right? You do actually know stuff. You're saying that maybe we don't know stuff, but you do know stuff.
And this is where our worldviews diverge, and it can come down to semantics about what we mean by know. I just think
he's just saying he thinks he knows things.
Yeah, it's just a slight adjustment on the position, and it's mainly from or
anything. You need to know something.
It's mainly from a position of efficacy, which is it's effective. I find it effective in life to reduce the certainty with which I hold ideas and with which I phrase those ideas. At certain times, if I'm pitching to somebody, I use more certain words, and I deliberately do that. Whereas if I'm, working with people, presenting with people, coaching somebody, I think that getting myself and getting other people to explore the uncertainty is useful. So it starts there and then becomes philosophical, not the other way around.
Could you be wrong about everything you think you know?
Yes.
How do you know that?
I don't.
Oh my God, face.
I mean, this sounds very much like just like a,
trolling.
It's not trolling if you're pointing out like how weirdly irrational or absurd something might be.
So could I have a
constant response is nothing but how do you know? How do you know? That's your constant response, and you have nothing else to say. I would consider that trolling. You have nothing else to add.
A subjective opinion, I guess. Thank you.
Yes, it is. You're welcome.
I mean, we had like a big discussion about science and all.
It was a good discussion. I thank you very much for it, Face. It's probably a good time to wrap it to a close because I've hogged the airwaves in here enough. But it was a really good discussion. I thank you very much for taking the time. And sorry I was getting sort of short or a bit rude with you at the end. It's been.
That's cool. I thought the wrapping it up was a little unfair. I thought it was a misrepresentation, and but yeah, you're okay.
So would you? Yeah. So I don't misrepresent your views and leave that as the thing I wrapped up on. Would you like to give to wrap it up for me?
No, that's fine. I said it all. Christ is king. But it doesn't. It's no big deal.
How do you know that? How do you know that? Hey, face. How do you know that?
Yeah, that's a very childish.
Thank you very much, Lost. That's nice of you to say that.
How do you know?
I've just started. We can play some games
now
too
it's
if you
trolling,
want.
right?
Now we're straight up trolling.
How do you know Christ? How do you know Christ is king, face? Yeah.
Yeah. That's the thing. That's what one thing I need to listen in here more for is that if we do the how do you know that game, that's kind of the bit I'm still confused on. Because we can play the how do you know that game. I don't understand how any one worldview comes out on top. That to me seems to be the conclusion to how do you know that game to me seems solipsism. You go, yeah, it's good reason to doubt all of the things we know, therefore solipsism.
Hold on. Face if y'all said Christ is king, I asked him, how do you know? And he just kind of went, well. Face, y'all, come on. How do you know?
How do you know? Yeah, Face, go.
This is the Bible.
I don't mind having that conversation sometime. Yeah.
You don't want to have it now.
Oh, just not right now.
Well, you're joking around. You're not serious.
Sort of joking around, but sort of like it's like tongue in cheek because we're just turning the whole concept, the whole conversational tactic back on you. Want to see how far you can ride it out.
Sure. I mean, honestly, I do answer questions. It's not like I ask this guy. I was going round and round and round for hours, just saying yes, no, no, yes, 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 no, kind of thing. And they were loaded questions. They were pretty loaded.
Yeah, that's the idea of it, isn't it? Same as the how do you know that? Is that what you mean by loaded? Because I feel like that's a reasonable strategy on either side, is to challenge and question somebody's reasoning and weigh up how can you determine this thing from this other thing. That seemed like the tool we were both using, which I think is an okay tool to use.
I mean, if how do you know that is loaded, then I suppose you would just ask them, like, do you know that? Kind of thing.
So it sounds like you feel it to be the case that it is loaded if I ask it, but it's not when you do.
No, because you didn't ask me that. You were asking me long. Your questions were like a minute or 2 minutes long.
They were. I will take that
Yeah.
feedback. I was asking very long questions, which makes them hard to answer.
Nothing wrong with it.
It's like kind of going, granting this thing that you probably won't, and this and this and this, and then kind of inferring that and that and that, and and obviously your Bible, the Bible's false and everything like that. But yeah, like how do you get out of solipsism? It's like, wow, really? You're gonna ask me a long question like that,
Yeah, to clarify, I don't think the Bible's false. I mean, I think that there's probably bits in it that are fairly close representations to what was the case back then. I just think that the likelihood that it is the inerrant word of God and describes all of reality is a low probability.
I think it's the nature of the deity.
You didn't really justify how you could verify like a probability claim like that,
I wouldn't be able to, yeah. I can guess at it. I muddle through, as I say.
Yeah. I don't know who that lady was who was asking for him to go down the probability line more, but
it was Shay. She was trolling you guys.
I was not trolling.
He can't. If you draw a dichotomy, if you say, well, position.
Yeah, I
he
wouldn't.
leans one way automatically.
Yeah,
you can say truth exists, and then you can say our knowledge of it is a completely separate issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the third option? Whether truth exists or truth doesn't exist?
The truth exists, but
now
changes.
Let's talk about our knowledge of those truth states.
Yeah, that's a different question. That's a completely different point.
Most of the time, what we're talking about is our knowledge of truth states.
But not now.
Yeah.
Is that true? Yeah.
when let's say that we were talking about knowledge, it's either the case that you can come to know something in such a way you couldn't be wrong about it, or it is not the case that you could come to know something in such a way that you couldn't be wrong about it.
Could I ask
Now,
Fox?
if you hold a position where if you hold the position where you could not come to know something in such a way that you couldn't be wrong about it, then anything you claim to know, right, would just be
could be wrong.
Wouldn't actually, anything you claim to know would just contradict your actual set of beliefs, basically. Because you got.
Could I ask about that, Fox? Do you hold that view of knowledge? Do you know some things that you could know and could never be wrong about anything other than the existence of God?
Yeah, this is what I ask him every time, and he will not answer it.
Oh,
I'm a Christian. I would answer. I would say there's an extremely large percentage that says I can know, or that I do know, but I would never say that I'm 100% right.
Right.
Be honest, right? Yeah, well, you're saying that you don't know that you could be 100% right. So, through, the revelation of the Christian God, are you not saying that you know in such a way that you can be wrong about it, that God exists?
No, I'm saying that I'm humble enough to admit that there's a very slight percent of a chance that I could be wrong.
No, I'm more humble than you, because I've actually accepted that I couldn't be God. Is it possible that you could be God?
No, I don't think so.
How do you know that? If you don't know what God exists or something,
we would have to define what God is.
Why?
And then I could be like, well, there's no evidence that I can make anything out of
run
nothing.
off on a tangent. Foxy has made a huge claim.
Foxy,
he has a system
a Christian
by which he couldn't be wrong about things.
Please, calm down. Are you a Christian?
Yeah, I'm a Christian, yeah.
Oh, boy.
Foxy, why are you attacking people who are Christians?
No, we're both Christians. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. Just chill out, Beanie.
Alright.
I'm not attacking him because he's a Christian. I'm attacking him because he's saying that he doesn't know God exists.
I'm not saying that I don't. Like, I would claim that I know that God exists, but is there a chance I could be wrong? Then yes.
How could you be wrong about that?
Well, I don't know. I could just be batshit crazy. Everything that I've deducted from, like, the whole moving from effect to cause, I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
Go with like anything else then. Like, so how do you know that you're talking on a phone to me right now?
No, it's definitely not a phone.
Could just point out real quick though that, like, even for someone to just defend that there's a tiny micro chance that they could be wrong about Christ, they have to basically assert that they could be batshit crazy. I just want to point that out.
Or the wrong God?
No, but to be honest, he said if he can be batshit crazy and not know.
Well, again, I shouldn't have said batshit crazy. I shouldn't have said batshit crazy, but there is a small percentage that I could be wrong. Yeah.
Okay, so let's just imagine that you're well. It's not even imaginary. Let's just take the point that you said there, that you could be batshit crazy and be wrong about something that's fundamental to your worldview, right? Like the ultimacy of your worldview, you're undermining basically. Right. So could you be wrong about whether the actual material world around you exists as well? Could you be wrong about whether you're a human being, or dinosaurs ever existed, or vaccines work?
Well, I'm relying on my sensory perceptions, right? So based on what I have, like my faculty, moving from effect to cause, I've deduced that if there's any wager to place, it's behind the Christian God of the Bible. And I would rather place that. I would place that wager.
Okay, but is that a wager that you know is going to come in, or it's just faith?
What? Say that again.
Is it like a wager?
You sound sleepy.
Feel like you've got a safe bet? You feel like you've
got 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I have a really safe bet.
Wrong about the Christian God existing?
Absolutely.
So what is it that comes into that? Like, how could you be wrong about the Christian God existing?
Maybe I would maybe say that God may not have revealed himself through any part of creation. I don't know.
How could you know anything if God didn't reveal himself?
How could I? Maybe I'm saying that I can't know anything for complete certainty, but I can place. I can deduct. I can do like a deduction based on my faculty, like what I have.
That's one of the points that we make, is like, in order to know anything, right, then you have to accept that the Christian God has revealed himself without accepting the necessity of referencing the necessity of the self-revelatory revelation of the Christian God. Then you couldn't know anything.
Okay.
So it's because of the Christian God giving you revelation, which must be the case, because any argument against that would just lead to either a contradiction or an absurd position where you couldn't know anything.
Oh my God, no, this is so not true.
What's the contradiction?
Oh, no, this is very interesting.
It contradicts the actual state of affairs, and the Christian God exists.
I want to know, Foxy, please tell us what you couldn't be wrong about. You don't want to ever do this. You claim you have the system by which you can make knowledge claims that you can't be wrong about. What is it that you can't be wrong about? What is it that you can't be wrong about?
Every day.
Yeah, prove it. Prove it.
Every single day.
What is it? Just give us a
It
short
is something.
list. Just 10
it is something I would like to hear the answer to.
10 things you can't be wrong about.
I'm gonna answer this. I'm gonna answer this and tell you a couple of things that I couldn't be wrong about. Okay, so
we're waiting with bated breath, Foxy.
Well, you already know the answer to this because you've heard me say it a load of times. Like, sure, what do you think the answer is?
Can I guess what it is?
Guess what the answer is, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to guess what the answer is. The Christian God has revealed himself in such a way that I can't be wrong about it?
No, that's not something... So I know that God's revealed himself.
I'm excited. I'm excited now.
I couldn't be wrong about it because it's only by virtue of referencing the necessity of self-revelatory revelation that you could be coherent in any way, right? But something that I know that I would say in this situation normally is that I exist because I know that you exist, and you're not going to challenge that really. I exist, and I can use logic to reason to conclusions about concepts, right? Now, if you deny yourself that, then you fall into an abyss of randomness and lies, basically an absurd position or some kind of contradiction. But if you accept that, then you can use the same mathematical principles that predicted the Big Bang and the first asexual reproducer and evolution and all of that kind of stuff. The same sort of principles that predict those sorts of ideas also predict that everything comes from a singularity. So that's God, right?
What conclusions can you not be wrong about, Foxy?
Things like, what do you mean? So I can use logic to reason any argument against the idea that I could use logic to reason to conclusions, which is
what you've said about a system of knowledge, besides saying that you've got God as your whatever, everything you described is nothing different than somebody that doesn't believe in God can still do. They can still do all the same thing. They can still do all the same thing.
They can't. The difference is that because it's revelatory and it's from God, it means that we've got a reason to accept that the system that we're imparted with is actually reliable at verifying truth claim. Whereas in your worldview, you won't be able to verify whether you evolved based on some kind of truth tracking
Hold on, calm
method
down,
that
everybody.
was beneficial to you, or
Foxy,
you
wait
were
till he
just
stops and then start up again. Jesus.
that you were just surviving in an irrational way.
It's okay. He's gonna.
I totally lost what you were saying.
He's gonna get.
Maybe if you talk for another 3 hours, we'll understand the point. Maybe that'll help.
If you interrupt midway through what I'm saying, then it makes
No,
it
this is
difficult.
between me and Foxy for just a minute.
I'm not
here.
being funny, but like, stop interrupting. Okay, like it's difficult to get some of these sentences out in a like it's hard to articulate yourself in a really clear manner, right? Especially if people are interrupting.
Said Foxy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I did. And here's the issue, Foxy. How are you going to demonstrate that you used a different reasoning process than a person that doesn't believe to reach a conclusion that you do believe?
I mean, if you don't like, so they can still use logic to reason to conclusions. They deny them of themselves. I'm not the one. I think that every single person in the world has revelation from God that allows them to know some things, and you guys think that nobody knows anything, basically.
No, that's not true at all.
Well, basically,
Can I try?
So Foxy, tell me, how did you reason to a conclusion about God without using your inherent reasoning first?
Look, I mean, I'm not sitting here saying that I wasn't using my ability to use logic to reason to conclusions about God's existence, but the reason that I was able to use logic to reason to conclusions is because God created the world in a way where that was possible. So there's a
How
thing,
did you reason to that conclusion?
because there's no other way that we could exist in the way that we do.
By what? By reasoning?
It wouldn't make sense, like, to try to posit that the world was created by some kind of evil demon or something like that was like giving you false truth. Then you wouldn't be able to make sense of anything. It's only in the Christian worldview where anything makes sense.
No, that's actually not true. And you've already admitted that you had to use reason and logic to reach a conclusion. Your conclusion was God, but you didn't start with God. You reason to God. So you start from the same foundation. You start from the same foundation. You started from the same foundation as everyone else.
Look,
no, it's not. No, it's not, Foxy.
I'm not going to let you strawman me.
I want to hear both
Okay,
sides
if
of
it's a
this.
straw man, then what part of it is a straw man? What part of it is what part of it? What part of it that you said other people can't do?
I'm trying to tell you. I am trying to tell you. Okay.
Oh, it didn't sound like it.
Part of it, yes, I am. You're still interrupting. The part of it that was a straw man If you do that again, you'll get muted. The part of it that was a straw man was, what were you saying again? So,
I'm saying you're not
no,
gonna,
I'm not being funny, but this is why I'm going to ban people from the channel if they interrupt. Okay, if you're rude and interrupt and make stupid comments, then you're going to be permanently banned.
Jesus,
you're
you're
defined as a stupid
Stop
comment.
being such a snowflake and stick
There
with the
you go,
argument.
Morrigan. I can't wait to ban you. So, okay, say what you were saying again so that I can get my train of thought back.
What I said was you're not going to be able to demonstrate that you used anything else but an innate reasoning process to reach a conclusion about God, starting from the same starting point that everyone else does. God did not come first. Your reasoning.
Can I respond?
Go ahead.
So you're claiming that I'm saying that I start from the same position as an atheist, which isn't true. I'm saying that God has bestowed knowledge of certain things to us in such a way that we couldn't be wrong about it, and through that knowledge, they're like the landmark positions through which we can navigate the world. Right, so you're trying to say that I'm not given these positions by God.
How did you reach that conclusion?
How did I reach the conclusion that because any argument against the Christian God, any argument against the necessity of referencing the self-revelatory revelation of the Christian God, it leads to absurdity. The only way that you can justify anything is with God.
What did you use to reason to accept that? How did you accept that conclusion? What process did you use by
I
which
accepted the revelation of God after years of trying to figure out a way that I could ignore the revelation of God. I was trying to find a way of worming out of it, but there's just no way.
So what process did you use?
I was like you guys, but you have to accept that the Christian God is the always truth revealer that created everything.
What mechanism did you use to
always
accept?
Truth revealer of truth that created everything.
What mechanism did you use to accept that?
What do you mean?
What's your point? What's your point, Andre? Because
my point is his reasoning is the foundation of his claim, the same as the atheist.
No. But Andre, because that is not fair. So let's say, assume that the Christian God is real, and that he gave everything the ability to make sense in the intelligibility, on all the rules, everything. Now, a person might not know that, right? But you're saying, oh, you're starting from the same position as us. Yes, but that position, according to them, is God, because God made it all possible. He laid out the rules, and once you analyze the rules, then you get to conclude, oh shit, we need something here, right? Without this, nothing would make sense. Everything would be absurd. So this must be where, some being, right?
Okay, I've had a friend Jamesy who's been on to chat before, who were chatting about lefty stuff with about whether violence is acceptable, which he might want to continue that conversation. But he said, "You down for getting triggered?" And I am. And that conversation, I've been in there twice now, will just circle around in that way. So before we move on, I kind of want to think about feedback for myself in that, which is I was happier with this conversation. I'm obviously not able to play it back in my head, but I think this reasoning tree, this string. After your last chat with Foxy, he talks so much shit on you. Did he? What did he say after I kind of, maybe I shouldn't. James, he's just messaged me and said, "Oh, I thought you wanted to jump on and chat." I think this conversation was a really effective one because the point that they make about the solipsist view is like, oh, you can't know anything, but then bizarrely get to this point where like, well, if you can't know anything, it seems like more like the sort of argument from preference or something like that. Like, well, I don't want that to be the case. I don't want it to be the case that I'm not right. So it's not Jamesy when Jamesy isn't jumping on. I thought when he said you keen for getting triggered, I thought he meant he wanted to jump on. tornado in a dump yard as well. Yeah, sorry, I should stop typing while I'm talking. Is I think most of the presuppositionalist argument, which is, as far as I understand it, this essentially infinite regress of how do you know that, which is, do you know that you exist? I think I do. Do you know that you exist? Yes. How do you know that? Well, I base it on this. How do you know that? 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 Until you get to a point where you go, I guess I don't. I guess I make assumptions at a certain point. And then they go, right, so you don't know anything. So they go from like, you might have doubts about some things to all probabilities are equal. And then they will then try to stack up things on the improbability of the side of atheism, which whether they will kind of go, well, the improbability of abiogenesis, the age of the universe, all of the complexity, therefore God. And there's a few problems, obvious problems to the argument, which is if I've got an infinite regress of I don't know why you should be any more confident in yours just because you went, well, I put a certain random dot somewhere and said that's the thing. I decided that there was an infinite regress that was finite. Don't know why it's finite. And at that point that it's finite, which I might call the singularity or the Big Bang or creation, for many of them, they're young Earth creationists, so 6,000 years, I put at that point God, and I put God outside of these causal chains, therefore God caused the causal chain to start happening. I'm not sure that a causal chain always needs to exist, but if your assertion is that a causal chain needs to have a root cause, you don't get out of that by invoking God, which is still needs a cause, right? You can say you don't need a cause for everything, fine, or you can say you do need a cause for everything, but then you can't invoke a causeless cause. But that's quite often where I find these presuppositionalist arguments end. At least I'm very new to them, which is when we get to a certain point, down at this point, that's the thing I call God. And if I define God as that thing, the uncaused cause, the unmoved mover, that which secures the continuity and intelligibility of things throughout time, certainly it seems these arguments, I wasn't so familiar with the presuppositionalist approach before, but they get very wordy, but what they mean is it's the thing that started things. Do you have a thing that started things? Therefore your worldview is invalid because you don't. I have a thing that started things, therefore mine makes sense, which makes sense to them. I think that is mostly a thing that I heard Foxy somewhat mention this the other day, which was it's sort of he recognized his worldview was unsupportable. So they go, right, well, if I can't guarantee or support this thing, then why would I hold it? Yeah, it is. It's uncomfortable to go, I don't know all things, and I don't think I ever will be capable of knowing all things. I just don't think it's then rational to go, therefore I've invented this thing, or I've glommed onto somebody else's root cause of this thing as the most probable explanation for it, because to me then it's like, well, according to what? According to your own rules, that doesn't make sense. I've said that about 5 times. Brevity, that's one of the things I could work on. Certainly some feedback that Face of Youre gave me, which was your questions are too long, and I'm not intelligible when the question gets too long. I think I did get a little bit pushy at the end, but I think that he was going, well, that's a loaded question, to questions I was trying to ask as close to the format in the questions he was asking me. So I was going, well, if you feel that's an acceptable or reasonable question to ask, I'm going to try and ask questions in that same way. And it seemed maybe I would need to listen back to it to see what he was saying about it. But I think what he was describing as a loaded question was a question that made him think, that challenged his worldview in a way that he wasn't able to readily refute. And that, I think many of those bits were good. I do think he's right that I was sort of, my summary of it, somewhat strawmanned, or I don't think I strawmanned his position. I think I talked about that readily, but I talked about that with, I think, accuracy, but presenting my side of it. I didn't mean to go, well, this was your whole argument. I meant to go, well, this is among the weakest parts of your argument. This is a foundational part of your argument, which is, I've found the right God, and it's definitely the case, but I don't offer any readily available way to distinguish that from mental derangement or demonic possession. So it's great fun. It's a fun conversation. I really enjoyed having that one. I think I'm probably just going to sit in the room a bit longer and probably shut down the stream in a bit. But that's my feedback to myself, and I welcome yours if you'd like it. Thank you as well for Bandsaw and James and Lost for joining in. It's really fun. I want to do more of this. So awesome. Thank you very much.
You're able to make sense out of the things because they have proper logic. They follow particular rules that are, that make things what they are. Now, that piece is there, they're saying, right?
No.
And you can reason to it, right? And you can accept it. Now, whether you accept it or not, the only problem is going to be the following: that if you take a system in which you don't have an account for the first piece, the fundamental piece, then you, according to your rules, according to your own rational model, you would say that you can not know anything, because in your model, in the rational model, if you don't have proper justification